Well, hello. I see I already have my three faithful Catholics thumbs up, like the Trinity. So the last video obviously caused a bit of a stir. James Fox Higgins did a show on it. He keeps doing the shows with that Gnostic idiot Mike Lowry, who's a moron. But let me not get diverted by that. Actually, what I wanted to do a serious stream. Um, there you go. Dilo says 3 upvotes, Illuminati confirmed. And now we have 7 and 7. 7 visitors and 7 thumbs up. So I actually had quite a very interesting, shall I say, interaction with Archibear, who's on Social Galactic. And I wrote a blog post not too long ago. Then I also realized, oh, hello, Cordell. I realized that a couple of posts that I'd done went onto the wrong blog. So the post that's up there is the Italian government asked for the restable gates, which is a long while ago. And the video is also the wrong format, so I'll have to fix that. But the second blog post down is "Why Always Catholic or Get the Fuck Out?" And, it's a relatively long blog post, which sort of takes you, it's sort of the idiot's notes to Catholicism and Protestantism. And sort of tries to take the whole point of the blog post was to take a very, shall we say, bird's eye view of things, which most people don't do and they don't know how to do. They tend to get stuck into the worm's eye level of stuff and then they get lost in it. It is, and I'm just going to read Archibear's comment on the blog post because it leads to, it made me realize that, one of the failings that you have as a relatively high IQ person is that sometimes you don't appreciate the fact that other human beings really just cannot process stuff the same way that you do. It's always been a bit of a failing of mine in that, and it's not a humble brag. It's a genuine problem. But I never realized the implications of it. I never realized the impact of it. Oh, sorry, I was connecting you to my phone. I never realized the level of the IQ gap, the 30-point IQ gap, which for me is more than that for the average human. And I always just assumed, well, if I can do this, so can everybody else. But that's not really the case. And it's difficult sometimes to understand just how far removed from objective reality and the facts that seem obvious to me a lot of other people are. I tend to have always stated that, you've got to be retarded to be a Protestant and completely ignorant of church history. And I stand by that. But to be fair, and this is going to sound extremely arrogant, but that's not the point. To be fair, if you've got an IQ like mine, the problem is that most people are retarded to you. They appear as though they're retarded to you, but that is just where they're at. So, and Rian Leclerc makes a good point. He says, converted last year and I've never been closer to God. If Protestants would just study history, they would understand that Catholicism is the one true faith. Absolutely. But there is something, I'm just going to read the commentary. Okay, I'm going to read the comment that Archibear made, and then I'm going to read what I responded. And at the end of it, you guys tell me what you think. Somebody's asking what my IQ is. On average, my IQ is about 155. I took 2 proper tests. I scored 157 and 152. The 157, I was relaxed. The 152, I really wanted to do well, so I scored a bit lower, which is normal. When you're trying hard for something, you're a bit tense, you're going to screw things up a bit more. But this is not about my IQ. You know, people get upset when somebody tells you, "Oh, your IQ is 150. Oh, you're just trying to be like Vox or Owen." Or I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I've spent, I figured out what my IQ was when I was, like I said, in my late 20s, and I spent the next 20 years not giving a flying fuck what my IQ was and never thinking about it at all. It was only as a result of speaking with another guy and emailing with another guy called Clark. Well, on Twitter, he was Clark Hat when the Pope Hat thing was still going. And he's got a higher IQ than I've got. And we conversed about it, and he made me aware of certain things. And then reading Vox's blog, I realized, when I came across the 30 IQ gap, communication gap, and I started looking at that, and this was some years ago. And then I started to notice things like in my work or with people that I worked with or people that I knew. And I realized it's a real thing. If you've got 155 IQ, the difference between me and the average person is pretty much like the average person and a chimp. But I never saw it that, I never thought of it that way. And I don't value people based on their IQ either. It certainly influences me, but one of the coolest people I've ever known didn't have an IQ able to process how to do the square area of a square. He couldn't do areas. He didn't have the intellectual capacity to do areas. But he's one of the most honest human beings I've ever met. And that guy, I love that guy. I'll go to bat for that guy. So it's not about intelligence. What I'm trying to explain to you is that I have a brain that works at a much higher level than most people. And for example, the books that I write, the couple of people that have finished it have written to me and they've said, look, I can't understand how the hell in such a short period of time you've only been, baptized as a Christian in 2017. And yes, that's true. But when I do something obsessively, I apply my whole 150 plus IQ at the problem like a zealot for years. And it's the same with anything. I mean, I learned to ski enough that I didn't fall down on a red piste in one day. And most people just think, no, that's just impossible. You're lying. You're making shit up. You couldn't be so good at all these different things. You couldn't have learned how to do hypnosis and martial arts and writing books. And it's impossible. You're just making shit up. And it's like, I don't know, I guess if you've ever played role-playing games, it's the difference between, the villagers, the zero-level characters that you come across, the NPCs, and you're like, a 7th level monk paladin. Yeah, you're better than the average person because you're a player character, Some people just get lucky cards or whatever. But there's downsides to that too, and one of them is that what seems obvious to me is not obvious to a lot of other people. And then we get this communication gap. But this is about Protestants, and I'm sorry if I've gone a little bit off topic. I didn't mean to talk about the IQ thing. Stone Ground Bear says that's about 5% of people that can communicate with you then, right? I believe that in my IQ range, it's I'm in the top percentile, 1% or so of the population. People that can communicate, that should be able to bridge that gap would have to have an IQ of above 125, which is not that common. And actually they're the most irritating people to talk to because they're used to being the smartest person in the room on average. And they don't often come across a guy who's a lot smarter than them. And then they just assume you're crazy or something because they can't follow what you're saying. Well, the guy that's at 100 IQ, he doesn't question it and he just kind of listens and, oh yeah, that sort of makes sense. So, okay, but enough about my IQ. This is not about that. I'm just going to read what Archiebear wrote in my comments, and then I'd like you guys to give me some input to help me to figure out if I've brought across the point that I wanted to get across. So Archiebear says, I believe your strongest argument for the why Catholicism question continues to be the argument of by their fruits you will know them. This is an argument rooted in the Bible, observable reality, and history. Sure, as a Protestant, I still think you're all somewhat silly pagans tricked by tradition into worshipping saints and Mary, but true Catholicism deserves respect for its historical achievements, among which is nothing less than creating the West as we know and love it. I hope the said deprivationists can restore the Church to its former glory, for we all benefit from strong actual Christian organizations. Very good and fair comment, and I always go a little bit hard because I don't like weak people. I don't want wishy-washy individuals around me, and if you're the kind of guy that gets too upset at my being a bit rude and intentionally arrogant at you for a reason, then good riddance. Move on. Don't stick around. You're not the kind of person we want hanging around here. So my response was, did you miss the part where I stated you are raised on lies about Catholicism? No Catholic worships Mary or the saints. You would have to understand the root of the word prayer in Latin to grasp the concept that prayer is not necessarily worship, and that the so-called worship of Mary and the saints is nothing more than asking them to pray for you, same as you would ask of a living friend. What you need to finally simply accept is that as a Protestant, you literally have no legs to stand on at all. None. You created nothing. You continued nothing. All you did is take something others had built and then proceeded to splinter it into 40,000 pieces. If that is not satanic, I don't know what is. I doubt the deprivationists will restore the church proper, but it's not a concern. If it is the end times, I plan to be the last man standing and swinging my two-handed at the heads of the enemy to my last breath. And if it is not, then eventually we will indeed rise again. In either case, there is only one path, forward. Archibald responded to that and said, I do understand that prayer is not necessarily worship, but here's the deal. Catholics pray to Mary and the saints, create sacred iconography of them, sometimes wear jewelry of their likeness, created religious holidays around them, and hold celebrations of them. Obvious worship is obvious, and that's okay, just admit to it. Is this the part where you call me a simpleton incapable of complex thought? Is this the part where you carefully explain the intricacies of how, although you treat Mary and the saints nearly the same as God, that you don't actually worship them? I look forward to the creative insults in your retort. So he's made a statement there that to a Protestant, what Catholics do with respect to Mary and the other saints looks like worshipping God. So it's like, how do you respond to that? Because as a Catholic, if you are an actual Catholic, you know that that is just so far from reality that I found it difficult to respond to that. And here is what I did respond. Well, I'd say on this one, you're halfway between retarded, which is acceptable, being as you're obviously the product of typical redneck incest. Archibald is from the Ozarks, so obviously, his parents are probably related. But that was just a little dig. And a liar, which is never acceptable. And so here I was saying, well, you're kind of halfway a liar and halfway an idiot. And honestly, that's what I thought at the time I wrote this. You contradict yourself in the very second sentence. Apparently, you also belong to some sect that doesn't ever wear, say, a cross. Icons have been used since the beginning of Christianity, and if you don't understand why they're not idols, I'd suggest you get a dictionary. But then you can't really read, so that wouldn't help much, I guess. And we hold holidays and celebrations of all sorts of people, including heroic martyrs that have little to do with Catholicism per se. Your statement that Catholics worship Mary and or the saints is a knowing lie, and you further embiggen it by the absurd notion that any Catholic would put anyone human as nearly the same as God, because it's an absurd statement. Archibald has joined us, and thanks for coming, Archibald. I'm gonna speak with read what you said in a minute. I just want to get through these bits. As for your obvious ignorance of the history of Christianity, that is obviously your own fault. Oh, and don't feel bad of being about the same to me as a barely functional retards are to normies. It's just how it is. And Archibald responded to that and said, I agree to being less educated than you in matters of Christianity. Again, very humble in his response. So call that retarded. Perhaps I'm retarded on a level you previously thought impossible. And here is the key. In his humility, he made me aware that actually that was probably the case. That's fine. What you have never known me to be in the past is a liar, and that's also a fair comment. And I won't start that habit now. I believe the combination of prayer, iconography, bespoke jewelry, religious holidays, and celebration around any figure in totality amount to worship. So he now has very clearly explained his position. He's clearly not lying or trying to be deceitful or trying to be a smart boy. That is what he honestly, genuinely believes. I know you disagree with this. I would expect nothing less. Zealots are nothing if not certain. Again, it's very interesting that on this point, he assumes I'm a zealot. Now, don't get me wrong. I classify myself as a zealot myself, but not on this particular point. This particular point has got nothing to do with zealotry. It's got to do with obvious truth and an obvious nonsense. He continues, it's true that as Protestants are often guilty of two-dimensional thinking. Catholics are sometimes guilty of running logical circles around simple notions. Obvious worship to me is obvious. I consider the worship of men or women to be treating them nearly the same as God. It is always possible that I'm wrong about something here. I enjoy arguing with you because you make me think about my positions. Now I've given you more ammo, Warrior Kurgan, so you may further eviscerate me if it pleases you. Once again, I really appreciate the fact that he totally ignores my, shall we say, arrogant, aggressive response rhetoric, which shows me something. He is now at a level that I can converse with him properly. He doesn't get fazed by my throwing buckets of shit at him. Good. He's been standing outside the temple, so to speak, to use the parlance of the martial artists, monks. So you can now step in. So I responded in a longer response, trying to bridge that gap. And I said, well, in that case, your retardation is probably too severe to allow any meaningful discussion, like teaching a dog to fly or a jet fighter. It's unlikely to produce anything good. But let me try one last time. Now, again, I was only half joking here because I've had the experience of trying to bridge that gap many times and generally doesn't work. Your obvious worship is absolutely nothing of the sort, not even remotely. In fact, your very process of classifying iconography, prayer of intercession, and days in which to honor certain saints as treating such people as nearly the same as God really exposes your rotten and meaningless faith, in inverted commas. And I wasn't being intentional, I was being sort of intentionally insulting because I'm still testing, is he really able to take all this and just water off duck's back? That's good. It is precisely because as a Protestant, you really can't differentiate between the unmatchable and unsurpassable reverence and faith in Christ and supporting your local football team that you make such a monstrous error. And it is a monstrous error. You have never partaken of the Eucharist after confession and the Latin Mass. You know nothing of the sacraments, and as such, it's all just dead theater to you. And it is. The average Protestant has absolutely no conception of what Holy Mass is. Let me try to give an analogy your atrophied Protestant brain may have an easier time grasping. It's the difference between talking about martial arts or seeing a film about it or reading a book about it and being in a dojo. Now, I use this, although I don't know that Archie-Bearer knows anything about martial arts, but because it is easier to, if you make an analogy that somebody has at least some experience of, to try and explain to them something that they have no experience of. Now, Protestants have got no experience of the reverence for Christ that Catholics have. It's not a concept they can understand. They've never been exposed to it, and they've been lied since birth about what Catholics are and what Catholics believe. So it's, they just don't know. And you can't make a comparison of something that they've got no reference for unless you use something that they might have a reference for. That's why I use this analogy of the dojo. And I continue, and in fact, it's even the difference between being in a dojo where the worst that happens is maybe one guy sprains something in all the classes that they're given in a year, and a dojo where every couple of years someone gets crippled or dies and there are dozens of broken bones every year. Do you think the atmosphere is the same in those two dojos? No, it is not. Do you think the experience is the same or comparable? It is not. Do you think that in the hard dojo, when you do set work of practicing, say, a combination of punches and kicks, all coordinated, repeated time after time after time to exhaustion, that when one of the men with the personal power to lead imperceptibly the pace, that it does not inspire and carry the rest of the class? Because it does. There has never been a real dojo I entered that you could not sense the difference as you stepped in it. There has never been a real dojo where these experiences of men being pulled along on the energy and spirit of a more accomplished fighter is not experienced by all in it. You're the guy who reads Black Belt magazine and watches YouTube videos and calls himself a martial artist. No, you're not. Get in a dojo, a real one. Observe, take notes, feel the difference, note how the men in it act, notice their humility and their power. Go to a proper mass. You're completely mistaken and lost. Go see and note. If you do not sense and feel and know a difference in these men who do the real thing, you only play act at doing. And Archibear, to again his credit, he replied, "Thank you very much for the analogy and the time you took in constructing it and answering me." So he's intelligent enough to understand, I actually spent some time on this, and I wasn't just a throwaway comment, which again gives me hope that he has the ability to understand what I'm talking about. I can't claim to have absolute knowledge of the subject of which I speak, but only of what seems obvious given the knowledge and perspective I currently have. Again, an absolutely fair point. Nobody can go beyond what they know. Imagine you're an anthropologist. You're studying a foreign culture. You see them pray to someone, a human, they call a saint. They have religious iconography and even bespoke jewelry of the saint. They've created religious holidays and celebration around this saint. Their culture is foreign, but the totality of the reverence for the saint seems to be the equivalent of to worship. That is my position, someone on the outside looking in at Catholicism. Very good description, a very good description. And my only correction to that would be, not only is he outside of Catholicism, he's outside of Christianity, because Catholicism is Christianity. So he's given a very good description there. The only thing he doesn't realize is that he's not a Christian. He's play acting at one, and that's not his fault. So your advice to go to a proper mass and experience the atmosphere firsthand is an argument that carries weight with my adult Protestant mind. And again, he's self-deprecating, which is a good sign. I know that only experience can explain many things in life. Only experience provides the necessary perspective. So I will take you up on said advice, given some relative convenience in doing so. After all, I'm in a somewhat rural and very Protestant part of the country. If you have dialectic information about why I'm wrong in my perception, I'm open to it. I don't expect to deserve such an explanation, but if you feel compelled, I'm interested. And this is for two reasons. First, as previously stated, I greatly appreciate and respect the fruits of the Catholic Church throughout history. Second, you're not a bullshit guy who is well versed on the subject. I may not ultimately agree with you, but I don't fear the result of studying such information. This last sentence is particularly important and something that I wish could be bottled and given to people to drink. The ability to lack fear in questioning your most cherished beliefs is an absolutely pivotal thing. One of the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of the stream why the guy that does the James Fox Higgins show with James, Mike Lowry, is a complete fucking moron, is because he absolutely does not have that ability. He's absolutely fearful and scared. And you might not be able to understand why I say that, why I see that. You think it's a personal thing. It's not. You know, the guy dislikes me and I dislike him. That's on sight. And there's a reason for that. And that is because he has a hole in his soul that I don't have. And people like him who pretend and want to be perceived as being, confident and accomplished and, secure in their own sense of self, have an instinctive envy about people that actually don't have that hole in their soul. I don't have it. It doesn't mean that I'm a good guy or a bad guy or whatever. I don't have it just because, I've done enough fuck-ups in my life to be able to know exactly who I am. I've always had a very good sense of my own identity from when I was a small child. People like Mal Lowry pretend. And people like me ultimately completely dislike pretenders. What Archibear has is the ability to seek truth honestly. And it doesn't matter how far, how lost you are, if you have that, that is more important than wisdom. That is more important than anything. It's courage. And courage is more important than wisdom, because you can be stupid, but if you're brave, you will go and look everywhere. If you're wise, you may but cowardly, you may well avoid the dangerous things and you will never grow. So I replied again to him, and I said, well, that was a pleasant surprise. I smiled at your description of Catholicism as being an unknown culture. It is only unknown to you because it was stolen from you. And that is true. It's not his fault that he's not a Catholic. In fairness, your retardation on the subject is not really your fault, and you have shown to have a functioning mind after all, so I may have been wrong in my initial judgment. Once again, another lie. This was written long before the James Fox Higgins show, and I keep referring to that, not because I care about Mike Lowry, he's completely irrelevant to my life, but because it's a way to explain to you and show you, for those of you that think I'm just an arrogant pig, that I can play that part very well, but that's not the point. I am happy to admit when I'm wrong without failing in it. I can stop in the middle of a vicious argument, and if the guy points out something that proves to me that I'm wrong, and admit right there and then, well, I was wrong. And, I went pretty hard at him at the beginning, but I'm admitting here, no, I was wrong in my initial assessment. I had not truly grasped the depth to which the enemy has thoroughly divorced you from your rightful inheritance. And that's true, that's a fact. I have to thank Archibald for giving me the understanding of just how far Protestants are from the truth, how far removed they are from knowing the truth. I never really quite appreciated, and that's because they're born into it, brainwashed to it. They eat it with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so it's not their fault. Think about it. You're like someone in 2010, after the Nazis won the war in 1945, who's born in 1980, who believes that gypsies and homosexuals and Jews are just fictitious characters used to scare children. Because if the Nazis had won in 1945, by 2010, there would be no gypsies, homosexuals, or Jews. They would have wiped them all out. That was the plan, by the way. If you want to compare yourself to an archae/anthropologist, then do the work. Dig, read, learn, think. Does it make any sense that all the Protestantism, all of it, all that Protestantism sprung out of nowhere and fixed everything? Or that even the nonsense Luther held as true is absolutely unrecognizable in 99% of Protestant denominations? You really think going from one mass, agreed to, revered to, understood in context by both illiterate peasants and royalty alike for centuries was just a misinterpretation of a meal? For that matter, read the actual New Testament, not the KJV rubbish. Either get a DR Bible, that's Dojo Me Bible, and read the passage about do this in memory of me. Just read it as is. Does it say, have a pot roast on Sundays and we'll call it good? No, it does not. It is very specific. Learn why every movement, every action taken at Mass has a meaning, and what that meaning is, and how it tied to the Gospels, and was a non-verbal way for the illiterate peasants to be able to know the whole story. All lost now, even to supposed Catholics, and absolutely not even suspected by you, historically deprived, nay, absconded from the very idea of history, poor Protestants like yourself. That is what I mean with my previous analogy. You're like a caricature of a future ignoramus that thinks that waving your hands is equivalent of being a deadly practitioner of Demak. Catholicism is a time-traveling street fighter you've just inadvertently pissed off. If you ever have such a meeting, I assure you that in a very short time you will be utterly shocked to discover that you know absolutely nothing, and that not only are you not a martial artist, but that Demak itself is a wholly fictitious martial art that has never existed except in comic books, which is what Demak is, by the way. And then Tom Mastroianni added two supplemental points which are valid, so I'd like to share them. One, most all Protestants equate praise and worship with the practice of gathering together for a session of the warm and fuzzies generated by singing songs with heretical lyrics accompanied by guitar music and, if you're lucky enough, a drum kit. As such, their notion definition of worship is incredibly flawed and nowhere close to the true Catholic worship, i.e. the sacrificial offering of Christ himself on the cross to God as represented at every single valid Mass, by the priest's offering of bread and wine transubstantiated into the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. As a consequence, the supposed warms and fuzzies Protestant perceive as Catholic experience when we properly honor our Lord, Blessed Mother, and celebrate the lives of the saints are readily perceived as an act of worship. Ironically, this weakened and deficient notion of worship to which Protestants have given themselves over reveals their heightened inclination towards idolatry, Not surprising in light of the past 5 centuries. 2. If Archibald is correct in his assessment of things, which he is not, then we Christians must all at once do away with birthdays, parties, anniversary celebrations, national holidays, and retirement dinners, to name only a few pagan rituals. So I hope I've given you an understanding of what I meant. I'm now just going to quickly read the comments in silence. Archibald, if you're still around, please do comment. Let me know if you think I've done justice in what I'm trying to explain here. And if I haven't, or if I've confused all of you, please just say so, okay? Yeah, there's some conversation about IQ and how Eric Weinstein has an IQ of 180, but they have no wisdom. Yeah, IQ doesn't necessarily mean wisdom at all. So very high IQ people almost sound crazy when they talk. Yeah, that's, I think, one of Vox's first laws. Any sufficiently high enough intelligence is indistinguishable from madness to most people. 130 to 100 is hard. 2 more deviations is insane. Yeah, it's difficult. IQ 140 is 1%. 155 is maybe 0.1 to 0.3%. Yeah. On average, I think 155 is about 1 in 10,000 people. So thank God someone is exposing Archibald for the midwit he is. That's Dances with Logos, and they have an ongoing little fake feud. So that's in good standing. It's not an actual criticism. In your opinion, what is the most effective argument for converting Protestants? I don't know, beat them to within an inch of their life, put them in a trench, and make them see their false God? I don't know. Quite a lot of people have been converted by my little short book, Believe. So I think my approach must have some merit. And my approach is basically always big picture to small picture. And, you know, I mean, a Protestant cannot stand against me in terms of arguing theology. They just don't really have a leg to stand on. There can be some very convinced ones, but they're just plain wrong. And when I call them out on the objective facts, they invariably have to do this like primitive twisting of their own brain to lie to themselves and me, because they cannot answer direct dialectic on the facts. I just arrived. This should be interesting. Dances with Logos says the most gamma way to arrive. Announce your arrival. I'm busy at work, so we'll mostly listen. If you ask me something, Kurgan, I'll try to reply. Oh, that's fair enough. I appreciate you being here, Archibald. Same time, Zenos, hi everyone. To be fair, Archibald, these are common Protestant arguments and I don't know all the answers. Okay, Hail Inquisitor. Such an important point, Kurgan, awesome stuff. Hail, okay, you nailed it. I grew up in a Protestant world. Protestants show less reverence for God than Catholics do for saints. Their idea of religion is very casual and removed, led primarily by their emotion. And David Perkins has got it absolutely right. I mean, when I got baptized, you know, part of the process of getting baptized is quite a lengthy process. You can get baptized in an emergency right there and then, but if you're not in fear of death, you know, a proper Catholic priest will baptize you on the same day. But like our Catholic priest, he like fucking did 24-hour crash course of all sorts of things, gave us this long paper that you have to read and you have to be able to respond to when you're being baptized. And it was a very formal occasion. You're not allowed to even be in the church until after he's, you know, sort of cleansed you enough to step through the threshold. And there are parallels to martial arts to a certain extent, because again, in martial arts, when you enter that dojo, when you step on that floor, you stepped on that floor. You're now in a different world. You're in a world where getting punched in the face and beaten to within an inch of your life is perfectly acceptable, and there's nothing wrong with it. And no, you don't get to like say he assaulted me or he's a bad teacher, he broke my leg and crippled me. You accept all of those risks the moment you step in. You're now in a, you know, this very mild representation of a war zone, because it's not a war zone. You're just training. You know, a war zone, people are actively trying to kill you. Here, your friends are just trying to beat your head in to make you better. That's what it is. But you're now crossing a threshold, and in part of the process, you lay prostrate on the floor in front of the cross, and it is an act of absolute subservient. You not just bow, you lie down on the floor, uh, asking Christ to forgive you and to be allowed to become a Christian. And it's important that every time that I go to church, you kneel. You kneel to sign yourself with the cross. And it's not out of like some, beaten dogs. No, it's a genuine, I'm not kneeling because, everybody else is doing it. I'm not kneeling because, I'm a Catholic, I have to kneel. It's not, I kneel because I choose to kneel. I do subjugate myself. And you'll see very dignified old men, men in their 80s and 70s. And I'm a bad Catholic because when I go to church, I don't necessarily dress up and put a tie on and everything. And I'll explain that in a minute. But you will see men in their 80s in full-blown suits, their best Sunday suit, and they do that out of reverence, and they kneel. When they come into the church, they kneel, they cross themselves, they go up to the altar, close to the altar. You don't step on the altar or go anywhere near it because you're just a layman. And you kneel in front of it and you cross yourself again, and then you sit respectfully. And the whole point is there is a huge amount of respect. Now, in martial arts, again, the real martial arts, there is respect. This whole Americanism of like, I win a point, yeah, and I shout. That is anathema to proper martial artists that learned in the way of the warrior, the Budo, the proper Japanese thing. It's unseemly. It's heretic. It's only a peasant of the lowest order, only the most ignorant, brutish moron who has no manners would behave that way. He wins a fight and he screams and jumps like a monkey. No, you don't do that. Whether you win or lose, the other guy was there fighting. You bow. You quietly go back to your spot. There is a reverence that really only men that understand a little bit about combat, I believe, have. You don't see anybody, in the army where you get shot if you try to run away. In those type of armies, you don't get a lot of boisterous bullshitting. You can get boisterous. You can get people that really will have fun to the point of death because fuck you. But it's not without reverence. There is respect. There is an honor. And Protestants know nothing about this. Now, the reason I don't necessarily wear my Sunday best when I go to a church is not because I'm a rude pig, or I am. Let's say I am, but that is I am genuinely that, shall we say, savage or uneducated in etiquette. Because I do not feel that what I'm wearing is necessarily important to God. It's not important to me. I can be wearing a suit. I can wear a $3,000 Armani suit, no problem. And I can wear a t-shirt full of holes, no problem. I'm still me. My clothes do not represent me or what I believe or my sincerity. But there is a form which I should probably respect a little bit more, which is for the other people. But on the other hand, you can go too far with that form. There are people that wear their Sunday best and haven't got a clue about what's really going on there and are not honorable men, and they're just fakers. And I fucking hate that shit. I would rather be caught, with a t-shirt full of holes covered in shit, blood, and mud in front of God when my time comes, but know that I'm there genuinely. And I'm like, sorry, dude, I didn't get a chance to shower before I got myself here dead in front of you. Then in a fake suit that, I look cool. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. But the reverence is real. And that is something the Protestants just don't have. I'm just going to keep scrolling through. You guys are sending a lot of stuff, so give me a minute. I'm just going to be quiet for a minute. If you've got a question, think about it, try and verbalize it properly so that it's helpful to everybody else. Ryan Leclerc says, Prots see prayer and worship as the highest form of worship you can give to God. But that's false. The Holy Sacrifice of the Mass is the highest form of worship you can give to God. Quite correct. So when they see Catholics praying to saints and Mary, they automatically equate that to giving what is reserved to God. Yeah. How do you logically arrive at Christianity when it takes a belief in other people's experiences written down? It doesn't. Irish Pisano, I strongly suggest, and it's not about the book. I don't care about the $10 that you have to spend and the buck or two that I get from it. Read Believe. My personal experience of arriving at Christianity was a road to Damascus moment that cannot be shared with other people. And it's not about believing other people's experiences written down. It's about truth, purely truth. The reason I tell you read Believe is because in there I describe what I believe is the only way that I know to be able to experience God for yourself. And it is simply to ask. But there is a specific way that you should ask, that you need to have internally to ask so that you receive. And I describe that in the book. And I don't want to veer off what I'm trying to do here. So it's a total disconnect from the actual Christian faith. It is indeed. What is a good primer on understanding church history overall? Again, I refer you to my little book, Believe, because it's only 98 pages and it's converted a shitload of people. Protestants, pretend Catholics, Novus Ordo Catholics, Orthodox, all sorts have converted to Catholicism as a result of that very short book. If you want the details on it, then this is the book you wanna get. This, however, is not a short book. It's 530 pages. It deals specifically with the Catholic Church and how it got converted by the infiltrators, the satanic Freemasons, and so on. So that is more specifically about the actual Catholic Church. But, generic history of the Catholic Church, just read the patristic fathers from the first 200 years of Christianity. Did you even know there's volumes of books on just the first 200 years of Christianity? Did you know that what they believe was probably the house of Peter in Antioch had an altar with the mosaics, with the same sort of stuff that we have in any Catholic church today, although they're now today have been taken over by the Satanists. So they're probably being corrupted now. But same rituals that were happening 2,000 years ago are happening now. I quite like this format. It all sounds good, accurate. Oh, Archibearer is saying it all sounds accurate. Protestantism creeps me out. But then again, I was raised Novus Ordo. If you are raised Novus Ordo, you are just as fooled as the Protestants. Because you believe that Bergoglio is Pope. You've been raised to think that Ratzinger is Pope. None of these people are popes. So if you are an interested Novus Ordo or raised Novus Ordo, this is the book for you. Get this one. Yes, it's 530 pages, but there's information here you won't find anywhere else. The people that have read it have been very impressed with it so far in terms of details that they didn't know. It's got every single one of the heresies in every single one of the 16 documents of Vatican II, and it's written in the same way as Believe, so hopefully quite entertaining. At least that's what people are telling me. So replace the setting with all of us in a town square holding torches standing in front of a pile of firewood and it'll be perfect. There is a way to actually have a fake background. I need to figure out how to put that one. In Minecraft. Oh yeah, in Minecraft. Yeah, that's code. That goes without saying because we don't want to be accused of being, fomenting hatred or anything. But of course, you should hate the wicked. You should hate the pedophiles. Tell me who shouldn't hate pedophiles. Novus Ordo did such a bad job about explaining the difference between Protestants and Catholics. Very poor. Well, of course, because the Novus Ordo are Protestants. I don't know if you know, but the Novus Ordo, the Protestantism, the so-called Catholic Church of today of Bergoglio was a Protestant-inspired and Protestant-driven, Jewish and Protestant-driven thing. And again, the history of that is here. There's a lot of details in here about who created Vatican II. It's quite interesting. In StarCraft on Sunday. Greetings from Scotland. Was just about to sit down to read your book and see you're live. Very good. Thank you for getting the book, by the way. Fire bats are armored like space marines. When it comes to learning about tradition, what church fathers would you recommend reading and or in what order? I would actually lead you to a book called The Four Witnesses, written by an ex-Protestant who was a very convinced Protestant and thought Catholics were just, pagan demons. But he started reading about the early fathers. He does a very good job of, first of all, simply quoting the church fathers and putting it in the context of the time. In other words, giving you enough historical background that you understand, where the people that were living at that point in time were coming from. And does an extremely good job of keeping his own personal views completely out of it, pretty much, but putting them sort of towards the back of the book. He shares about 4 or 5 pages of his own personal path, which is very, very interesting. That book gives you a very good overall picture of what it's like being a Protestant and coming through to Catholicism through purely objective reading of the facts. So I would suggest that book. It's called The Four Witnesses. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Ron or Rob or something like that. Bennett, maybe? But I'm useless with remembering names, so I speak under correction there. Gold remark of a guy from Champions of the Light about Kurgan reminding him at every occasion to come back to Catholicism and that his ancestors are rolling in the graves, that he became a schismatic. Yeah, that's James. James a good guy. And James, yes, he's choosing the schismatic path so far of orthodoxy, but James is another very good truth seeker, and he's intelligent. He's still relatively young, and he's a bit impatient and a bit taken with the world, so I think he might not read the patristic fathers very much. I doubt that he will have the energy to read through this. And he seems to think that Catholicism is very legalistic and it's a very complicated position. It's not complicated. It is legalistic because truth is legalistic. There is truth. There is an objective truth. You need to know, understand, and believe in objective reality before you can become anything, really, and certainly before you can become a Catholic. Remember that Catholicism is based on reason above emotion. So, hell yes, it's real. IQ differences. Yeah, they definitely are. And, it's not always an advantage to have a very high IQ. I mean, it is in a lot of ways, but, it has its downsides. Why do Protestants believe that only they, as a sect or individuals, have the correct interpretation of the gospel? Isn't that satanic, since they believe they speak for Jesus, that they are closest? Yes, it is satanic. Remember, I'm the guy that coined the phrase that the only rule of Protestantism is interpret as thou wilt. The Aleister Crowley, the only demonic law is do as thou wilt. Do whatever you want. That's Satanism. And the Protestants have got a version of that called interpret as thou wilt. That's it. Every Protestant interprets as whatever he wants. It's absolutely satanic. And of course, Protestantism was satanic. And, Satan is a very smart long-term planner. It's taken 400 or 500 years to get Satanism, that is Protestantism, to allow, it took a couple of 100 years to allow the milieu in which Freemasonry could be sort of active, and to allow the destruction of the royal houses in Europe, and to allow the infiltration of the church by Freemasons. It took a couple of 100 years after Protestantism before that process could start. And that process took a couple of 100 years before we could have, Roncalli become fake pope, and we've had a string of fake popes ever since. It takes a couple of 100 years, but, Satan is playing the long game. Although it looks like he's running out of time more recently, because he seems to be speeding up quite impatiently towards the end times. It seems that way. I don't know whether we're anywhere near that or not. I don't know. Jordan James says to David Perkins, get baptized and join us. We could use a man like you. We're laying claim to Mount St. Michael and launching the crusade from there. It's prophesied on Minecraft. I love this Minecraft, although I hate Minecraft, never played it. but I understand what you mean. To him that they know what he was saying. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm reading comments disjointed. That doesn't make. Americanism is a heresy in itself, Ryan Leclerc. Absolutely, but you have to understand, it's not the fault of the Americans. And I bring a story to you now about, on Cyprus, the Greeks and the Turks are hating and fighting with each other, and people think that and a Turkish guy said he was in Cyprus, went to the Greek side and said, why do you guys hate us, Turks? And the Greeks said to him, no, that's a lie. We don't hate you Turks. We got no problem with you guys. We know you guys. We've got a similar history. We've been fighting. We don't hate you. We hate your government. I don't hate you. I hate your government. I hate the shit that they make you believe. It's a very correct statement. The average American is a gullible, ignorant, friendly person. That's your average American. It's not their fault that are being completely ignorant because their education system has been designed to keep them ignorant. They're friendly and gullible because, and they believe they've been brainwashed that America's the greatest country in the world. But you have to understand that America is a completely Freemasonic country. It was built as a Freemasonic country by Freemasons. It was created by Freemasons, and it was created by bankrupting France, for which the king at the time and his wife lost their heads, Louis and Marie Antoinette. They bankrupted France, financing America, and they created the first Freemasonic country. And you can see that in your legal system. It's a complete loophole-filled satanic mess. All of the founding fathers of America were essentially, a lot of them were actual outright Freemasons. George Washington was a Freemason. This is known. If there's pictures of him in Freemasonic poses and so on. So, yes, America is, as the Muslims say, the great Satan. And please don't confuse me with Owen Benjamin. Islam is Satanism itself. Of course, it was inspired by devils and people that are into raping children and so on. So I'm no fan of Islam, but when they say that the USA is the great Satan, it is. All of this transgender mixing, all that stuff, all that, let's give hormone blockers to 4-year-olds and turn them into the opposite sex. That all comes from America. The rabid feminism, the rabid abortions, all comes from America. Free speech, the absolute nonsense that I've said that free speech is a complete lie and absolute retardation since I was 16. And Vox is now caught up and he's talking about it, but I've always known that. I'm on record on that on the internet. As soon as the internet came alive, I was talking that you're retarded if you believe in free speech. There's never been any such thing, and there never will be. I was told by fellow Catholics that Protestants are Christians since they were baptized. Is that true? No, it's not true. They're not fellow Christians. Protestants are, first of all, the intention, while they might be baptized, you've got to keep in mind that the Protestant idiocy of once saved, always saved, which I go through in this book again, is complete nonsense, of course. It's illogical, that doesn't make any sense, and it would make absolutely everybody a Calvinist. Once saved, always saved is rubbish. Just because you've been baptized does not mean that you will go to heaven. In fact, we know for a fact that most people will end up going to hell through deception, laziness, sloth, We're told that in the Bible that the road to hell is wide and very well traveled, and the road to salvation is narrow and hard. So, Protestants are not Christians. They may have been baptized, but that doesn't mean that they're Christians. They may have been baptized even correctly, let's say, because all you need for baptism is the intention to be true and the words and the form to be correct. So if the words and the form have been correct and the intention of the pastor baptizing was true, which in most cases I would very much question, because a lot of Protestant pastors are just conmen. They're just there for the graft. They're there for the money. It's a business. It's a job. I personally am aware of so-called evangelists in South Africa with a link to America. American evangelists came to South Africa and taught the business model. And in conversation with, at a high level, this is behind closed doors so that the so-called believers are not aware of it. talking with each other, these people are outright saying, yeah, it's a scam. We make this much money, and if we do this, and if we convince them, it's a business. It's a pure, flat-out graft. It's got nothing to do with reality, Jesus, belief in the church. And a lot of Protestant preachers, that's what it is. It's their business. They're con men. They've got a facility with language and speaking bullshit, and that's how they make their living. It's a con. They're snake oil salesmen. So I would very much question their baptism. Just like I believe any Novus Ordo, anyone that baptized you, a Novus Ordo priest that baptized you, first of all, if they are a priest of the Novus Ordo Church, they are themselves not Catholic. They are not Christians. They are absolute heretics. And if they're ignorantly heretics, in other words, they don't know about Vatican II and all that, well, then they're criminally incompetent, which I don't for a moment believe. I do not give them the benefit of stupidity. I give them the benefit of knowing deceivers, of being knowing deceiver. If you're a priest of the Catholic Church, you cannot not know about Vatican II, like Vigano. Vigano has got a PhD in canon law, and he's now pretending to be like going the other side. No, Vigano is a liar and a coward, and he was never a Catholic, and he's not a Catholic now, and he's a heretic, because and now he's speaking out, but he's still calling Ratzinger and them popes. Absolute nonsense. These are imposters. They're knowing deceivers. So why would you trust that a knowing deceiver had the right intention when he was baptizing you? He didn't. He doesn't. You're better off getting your atheist brother saying, dude, just do this for me because you love me, getting some water over you and saying, okay, in the name, I baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You're better off with that baptism than a baptism by a Novus Ordo fake priest. So, yeah. Prots believe everyone is divinely inspired when reading the Bible as to the correct interpretation. The fruits of this are 40,000 separate groups all claiming the truth. Indeed. I can recommend his book, Reclaiming the Catholic Church. Definitely takes a couple of reads, but if anything, that means you're getting your money's worth. Ben Evans. Ben, I'm curious about that because I thought I've written this in a very simple English. There's no complicated words, I don't think. I don't think it's hard to read. Chapter 4 is an endless beating of Norcos. Just so you know, chapter 4 is, just quickly find it here, the heresies of the 16 documents of Vatican II. And I literally go through every heresy of every document in Vatican II, which no one else has done. As far as I'm aware, there's bits and pieces here and there on the internet, but no one has taken through every document and said, this is heresy, this is heresy, this is heresy. Does liberalism come from Freemasonry? Are those that believe in liberty actually satanic? It depends what you mean by liberty, but liberalism is absolute nonsense. It's, again, this the whole free speech and I can do what I want as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. No, you can't. Again, the example that I give about free speech is a hypothetical, but it's one that you should think about. It's a complete hypothetical. But let's say you've moved into a little community where there are no video cameras. It's a rural sort of area. There's like a sheriff and 2 cops. That's it. You've just moved in. All your neighbors seem nice, whatever. You've got like 3 little kids. Your wife, your happy family. You move in. And you've just moved in, and on day 2 of moving in, a guy knocks on your door, big tall guy with a big bushy beard, and says, hi, I'm the neighborhood pedophile. I really love fucking children, and as soon as I catch one of your children alone, I'm going to rape it, probably to death, but I hope they survive for a while because I really enjoy raping children. I just live next door. Now, he's just said some words. If you're a believer in absolutist and free speech, you're not allowed to do anything if you're a liberalist, and you're just going to have to stand there and go, oh, okay, I guess I'll have to try and make sure my children don't get caught alone with you at any point in time. But I can't do anything about it because, well, you're just speaking words to me. And that's what a liberal would do. That is what people that vote for the Libertarian Party, they believe in the pact of non-aggression. What a Catholic man would do at that point, a proper Catholic, as I see it, in this hypothetical, would simply draw his handgun and fire straight into his face, right there and then. And in a Catholic community, anybody that had heard him speak or saw that this is what happened would sort of go, do you need help moving that body? Because it's quite big and we shouldn't have a proper burial. But there is a bog about 4 miles down the road we don't really want to dirty your truck, but I've got an old carpet you could tie behind your four-wheeler, and we could just drag the body out there and dump it in the mud for the snails and pigs and whatever to eat the corpse. And the sheriff, who might know about this and heard this guy saying this, would be of the same mind. That is what would happen in a proper Catholic society. And it would be absolutely understood that that was necessary. Now, in a proper Catholic society, you should have a proper trial before you burn him at the stake. But, in the heat of the moment, you could understand, you would have to reprimand that Catholic father for shooting the man in the face on his porch, because he didn't take the time to expose him, but you could understand it. You could forgive it. You could say, well, you might have to say 10 rosaries and ask for forgiveness, and you control your temper a bit more. You should have dragged him out to the church, where in front of everybody we would have tied him to the stake and burnt him alive, so that everybody understands that you deprive the community of knowing what is the correct procedure. So that's a bit naughty of you, but we understand. It was a tough time. So much for free speech. And anyone in here that thinks that on that hypothetical, they would just sort of stand there and go, well, I guess I better look after my kids. Well, then you're a cowardly scum, and I certainly don't want you anywhere near me as a neighbor. So I hope that answered your question, William Pooh. The Kurgan, Robin Griffin Jones, it's in my basket, okay. The Kurgan, thoughts on Islamo-Christian values. There is no such thing. You cannot be an Islamist and a Christian. There's no such thing. Anybody that talks about Islamo-Christian values, such as Big Bear, is either an idiot or a heretic or both. No, Novus Ordo equal Protestantism, indeed. There's reasons why most Catholics in the US don't believe in transubstantiation anymore. Exactly. They're fake Catholics. Black coffee and a cigar to get hyped for the Grand Inquisitor stream. David Perkins is obviously a man of class, a man of taste. I recommend cognac. Oh, we've got 2 downvotes to 30. Guess there's a Protestant in addition to our downvoter. Cheers for recommending a concise version. Getting through all the volumes would be a real task. Indeed. There is objective truth. There is black and white. The gray areas is in our mind. As Bishop Sanborn said. Yeah, as you know, Bishop Sanborn and I have some differences, because he is a bishop of power, not a bishop of piety, which I can, to a certain extent, forgive, but as a proper Catholics don't and shouldn't. He is going against canon law in that respect, although he's a valid bishop and he produces valid priests. Do you agree that consent equal to marriage? Well, yeah, that's what marriage is. And that's what's in the Bible. Your body, once you get married, no longer belongs to you. It belongs to your spouse. Your wife has absolutely the right to demand that you have sexual congress with her at any point in time. She absolutely has that right. She has the right to your body at any point that she wants, and vice versa. Now, those of you that are thinking, oh, he believes in marital rape. Well, no, I don't. I don't believe that, your spouse ever would deny themselves to you. And, unless there's a reason, of course, that they're sick, there's a medical reason. And if they're sick or there's a reason, you should know. You should be aware of that as somebody that you love. You don't want to impose on them at a time where they're maybe not well or they've got other things going on or whatever. But, those are specific events. I wouldn't want to impose myself on someone I love, of course. But somebody that loves me wouldn't feel that as an imposition. My wife says, hey, come here, I want to have some sex. I've never once in my entire life ever felt that was an imposition on me. Even when I was not a Christian and I was not married, that was just understood naturally. I have never been in a relationship where, sex is withheld or used as some kind of a power. It just wasn't an issue. Most normal women really don't have that. That's very much an American thing. The whole oh, you want sex again? The women that I've been with have all been very happy to have sex whenever it was, whenever I wanted, whenever they wanted. It's not a thing you argue about. I don't know. It was never a thing. So yeah. What are the major difference between Orthodoxy and Catholicism? I can imagine that's a long answer probably, but what would be in the broad strokes? Cordell Mitchell, very little. There's very few differences between Orthodoxy and Catholicism in terms of theology and so on. Broad strokes, the differences are these. Catholicism actually spells out the dogmas. There's literally a book where it's all written down. It's called the Pio-Benedictine Code of Canon Law, and that is how you interpret the dogma of the Catholic Church. It's in black and white. It's based on Roman law, so it's very clear. There's no arguing with it. That said, of course, there are elements of Catholicism and Christianity that are mystical, but they're very few and far between. And you don't have to just, oh, well, it's mysticism. I don't get it, so it's mysticism. No, that's a cop-out. And the Orthodox don't have all their dogma written down, so they've got that as a bit of a cop-out. They're absolutely wrong on the theological discussions, like the Filioque. But, the Filioque is a very rarefied argument that ultimately has no practical effect on your life. But if you care about truth, just read the New Testament, where it talks about how the Holy Spirit comes to people and whatever. It's absolutely clear that it comes through both the Father and the Son. And the Orthodox don't believe that, so they're wrong materially on the facts. And broadly speaking, again, on fruits of their labor, the Orthodox did not Christianize the world. The Orthodox were insular. The Orthodox retreated from the attacks of the Muslims at every turn. And only when they were about to lose Constantinople, they called on the Catholics. The Catholics came and helped them. And every time the Catholics came and helped them, the Orthodox betrayed them, making pacts with the Muslims to attack the Catholics because they were scared, oh, these guys are going to take over. So they did not behave like good Christians. They did not behave like logical Christians. They were traitors and big picture scenario. I'm not saying every Orthodox is a traitor and every Catholic is a saint. I'm not saying that at all. But big picture scenario, you will know them by their fruits. They didn't do much. They didn't even bother taking back their lands once the Catholics protected them and kept them for 200 years, being funded by taxes from Europe, from the Catholic world. And when they were, after 200 years of this, they couldn't keep it up. And they said, look, guys, can you just take over the castles we've built, the fortresses we've built? It's your land. Can you just please at least help us keep the hordes back? They wouldn't do it. So, again, you don't take my word for it. There are a very eminent historian wrote God's Battalions. Read God's Battalions and read the Crusades of Iron Men and Saints by Harold Lamb, and God's Battalions is by I can't believe I forgot his name. It'll come to me at some point. So again, the fact is Catholicism is closer to the truth. We're all mistaken, we all have errors, but Catholicism is far, far closer to the truth than any other version of fake Christianity. I don't believe in Islamo-Christian bullshit. That's quite correct. Sebastian Santo. Kurgan, I must say I feel betrayed. You accepted my request to become inquisitor of the Kurgan cult, and I did not receive even a formal invitation to our first execution. Chris Govey Animations, you have to learn the ropes. You have to watch how it's done. I'll be sure to let you know if I have another inquisition. You can take notes. Protestants can smell their own shit on their knees, act like those who control their church are not corrupt and converge, and have those who don't believe as leadership, like Jerry Falwell Jr. as an example. Yeah, my favorite was, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who kept going to prostitutes and then kept getting caught, and then he was like, oh, but forgive me, and people still throw money at him. I was just like, what is wrong with Americans? Are they all just retarded? I can't remember. This was in the 80s. The royal houses contributed to their own demises. South Sea Bubble 1721 and the Mississippi Bubble 1722 broke the backs of the monarchs. Of 1723 we entered the age of the Republic. Yeah, that's Escat de Silva. Hail Kurgan, we apologize. America or Israel via America. I don't know what that means, Keith A. You keep talking like this, and I might actually have to denounce my heretical Protestant ways. Jokes aside, you have me looking at getting baptized by a proper Catholic. Thanks, Kurgan. You're most welcome, Ethan, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that you've managed to, shall we say, go past the veil of my apparent arrogance. It's a good thing, because you got to remember that as a Catholic, you will be attacked at every turn. It's going to be a hard road, and but here, the guys who baptized me sent. I didn't pay. I paid retroactively, but they sent me this. It's all in Italian, so it doesn't. It's not helpful for you. But this little phrase, brilliant little phrase. That's their motto. Nec spe, nec metu. It's Latin for without hope, without fear, and it is absolutely the opposite of nihilism. Because if you are a proper Catholic, you don't need to even have hope. Even in a completely hopeless situation, you have no fear, because you know the truth of God, Jesus Christ, etc. And and honestly, I have never seen Protestants with that level of conviction. You can see men with that level of personal conviction that will go on to their death out of their own personal sense of honor or duty. There are many ways that men will go to their own death, exhibiting what seems like not a lot of fear, but in reality, those are convinced, very tight, like, oh, I'm just gonna power through my own death. The Catholic way is like Irenaeus. Irenaeus walked for a year and a half to get to Rome, where he would be killed, put to death, eaten by lions. And he knew that was his sentence, and he walked there calmly, peacefully, grateful that that's what would happen, because he knew it would convert more people to Catholicism when they saw his conviction. Or like the guy whose name I took when I got baptized, Adrianus. He was a captain of the guard of the emperor, and they were torturing Christians to death. And he saw how they just accepted this with magnanimity, and he thought, these guys, they must know something true, and converted there and then. And he was tortured and killed to death for it. That is the Catholic way of not being afraid, because you know the truth. And you wouldn't be afraid if you know the truth. That's why all the apostles went to their own deaths without fear. When they hid, when Jesus Christ was getting crucified, they hid. They were scared to get crucified next to him. But after they saw him rise from the dead, they realized the truth. And they're like, well, you can kill me, it doesn't matter, because I know the truth. You can definitely make a man reflect. That's Grumpus Aurelius. Good, I'm glad. That's the beginning of wisdom, if you can question your own, strongly held beliefs, but what are they built on? They're just built on the lies you've been told since you were a child. They're not built on your own knowledge. They're not built on your own investigation of the stuff. Archibear says, I freely admit once saved, always saved is complete bullshit. It's an excuse people use to act horribly. Well, it's idiocy. I mean, I don't know. Even a child can see that. Heresy is different from any other sin in that it puts one outside the church. Indeed. Kurgan, thoughts on being owned by Simon Dan? I wasn't. Teddy Scamgetti. Oh, but okay, you're obviously one of those gammas. I'll have to ban you. Simon Dan absolutely did not own me, and he didn't respond to my response. He's a busy guy. He's a cool guy. I reckon if I had a lot of time to sit with Simon Dan, he would see that my position is very eminently possible, although he might disagree with it, which is fine, but there's definitely enough there. Whoever's playing Spot the Gamma, check out on Teddy Scamgetti Jr. Yeah, he's one of, I don't know, some weird little Gamma music. If he keeps going, yeah, he keeps going. I'll have to ban him, but let's just go scroll through the things for now. Whoever's playing, okay, Teddy's going to go back to your R.O. and Benjamin Gamma Hive. Okay, I don't know what that is. Oh, is that Reddit Owen Benjamin? Okay. yeah, wouldn't surprise me if he's from there. Once saved, always saved is something agnostics and atheists call out all the time. All right, let's just ban this fool because he's just wasting everybody's time. Let's all right, let's just go ban him. Give me a second while we ban Teddy Scamgetti Jr. Obviously, they're trying to... where is it? There's probably going to be a little bit of echo now for a second while I go here. Bear with me, guys. It's a bit of a process. There must be an easier way to do it, but I don't know how.
Let's just go ban him.
Let me just pause this and get the Teddy Scamgetti idiot banned. Where is he? Oh, wow, there's a lot of... here we go. Okay. I haven't read all of his other comments, and now they've disappeared, so... Well, too bad. I'm sure we could have had a bit of fun reading them, but... Whatever. Oh, no, actually, they're still on the... Cool. I've still got them on the... on this side, so we can laugh at him. Season 5 Expanse is coming. Yeah, that's good. Mars Believers, bro. Regarding the Catholic position on submitting to authority, when should one resist the restrictions being imposed by governments, masks, closing businesses, or just accept the authority? Well, that's, to a certain extent, it's your personal choice. The fact that these things are being imposed by Satanists, to me, makes it pretty clear that you should resist whatever you can resist. But it's a, you got to sort of pick your fights. If you're a martyr type, then resist everything, I guess, and whatever consequences come, so be it. If you're a warrior type, you can be a bit more sneaky about it, I guess. But, oh, Teddy Scamgetti question was to Dances with Logos. Do you dance with consent equals marriage? Now, all we need is an illuminated leather-bound version of Reclaiming the Catholic Church. Illuminated, indeed. However, Vox being a bit of a Protestant and consorting with goat abusers, possibly for the leather, I don't know that he will do that. I'm not sure. We might have to produce our own version. I don't think that Castelia House, being run by filthy Protestants, is going to be up for a leather-bound, illuminated version of Reclaiming the Catholic Church. But you never know. Vox is a clever, weird guy. He just might go for it. Pew Bear says, Vigano not speaking up about anti-popes indeed stinks. Normal priests that attempt to do the traditional mass after indoctrination in hermeneutics of continuity scam may be misinformed. It doesn't matter if they're misinformed or not. They're not Catholic. Again, read the book. In the book here, by the way, I also have it's one of the appendixes, but Ex cum apostolatus officio. I have the full thing in here, which basically is what the canon law, the canon is very clear, but if you want the full research, it's in there as well. If you promote heretics or if you accept heretics as not heretics, you yourself become a heretic. So it's pretty clear. The so-called, Tay-Tays of the world, Dr. Taylor Marshall, scam artist, complete fraud, grifter. I don't care that President Trump retweets him. I get it. And I don't know whether President Trump is or isn't aware of the sedevacantist position. He may or may not be aware, and I understand that he could be a useful tool. This Taylor Marshall, like Vigano, could be a useful tool. But again, as proper Catholics, as men who care about the truth, you cannot consort halfway with fraudsters, with demons. You might have to use them in an alliance towards a war, but you have to be aware this guy is not my friend. Maybe I can make a temporary alliance with a guy like Vigano. I discussed that at the end of this book as well. But that's not, I'm never going to say, oh, he's a valid Catholic. No. If Vigano becomes Pope tomorrow and reinstates the proper Catholic Church, he will still not be Pope. He will be an illicit, invalid Pope. Even if he restores the church, once he's done, he should retire and do what the Catholic Church says that such a man should do, which is live for the rest of his days in penance in a monastery. That's it. And then we can call him Catholic, not before then. There's a leather-bound video of Simon Dan owning Kurgan. It's great, highly recommended. No, There's a video of Simon Dan pretending to ignore certain things and not answering certain things and being very polite about it, as I was to him. I've got no beef with Simon Dan. I responded to his reply, which was not completely honest, let's say. He dodged certain things and he avoided certain things, but there you go. Oh, we got 3 down votes. The Antichrists. I love the title. Walking into a black neighborhood in America, shout a racial slur and see how long your freedom of speech lasts, your freedom of life as well. There you go. Ben Evans, as for saying your book takes a few reads, it's dense in information. I like to be able to recount particulars at will when necessary. So for me, it's taking a couple of reads, partially foreign names. Oh, okay, that's fair enough. I mean, you're going above and beyond what most people do. So yeah, fair enough. I mean, there are books like that I refer to time and again. Can we ban Teddy? Yeah, he's banned. Just took me a while because I was busy talking. And Pew and Bear, hermeneutics of continuity is the biggest lie. It's so evil. It's Ratchin's way of passing heresy off as though it's tradition. Truth doesn't change with the times. Exactly. Hermeneutics of continuity is absolute fucking nonsense. It's right up there with once saved, always saved. Okay, Teddy's Getty going a bit wild. The Kurgan lives and will burn the lies of the Peters away. Of course, this is a hypothetical, all the while I assist. Yes, I think the phrase is, what is it, in Roblox? No. I forget, Minecraft, whatever. I like Roblox better because my daughter plays Roblox, so I can't remember. Minecraft is Microsoft, by the way. I mean, maybe Roblox is too, I don't know. Burn the heretical base, Kurgan-based, marry young girl. No, again, Islamo Kurgan-based. He's just trying to get himself banned, and he succeeded. Bishop Sandberg is doing really well, expanding his seminary into Pennsylvania because so many young men are considering the priesthood. Pray for vocations. Absolutely. And that is one of the partial reasons why I, Bishop Sandberg and I have our differences, clearly. But I think we're fighting on the same team. Better Catholics than I am will refuse to have anything to do with him because he has acted in public ways that are wrong. He has denied the sacraments to people who are proper Catholics purely in order to get a handle on certain, to get power over certain missions that he has no jurisdictional authority over. And so for that reason, we disagree on certain points, but I think he's possibly doing that as a way to just achieve a certain result, which is fine for people like me to do, because I'm not a priest, I'm not a bishop. It's not fine for people who supposedly represent the church to do. They have to be above and beyond. As a Catholic, I should behave above and beyond the average plebeian heretic. As a priest or a bishop, you should behave above and beyond any Catholic layman. Often not the case, because we're all human, we're all fallible. There have been, throughout the history of the church, very bad priests, very bad bishops, very, evil men that pretended to be. And I'm not saying Bishop Sandburn is evil at all. He is going against canon law, and he's claiming jurisdiction where he doesn't have any. Temporal, worldly, let's say, jurisdiction. So in my mind, yes, it's an error, yes, it's a sin, and yes, it leads to, when you start to deny sacraments to certain people or whatever because of it, it leads down the wrong path. So it has to be very, very careful. But, it's one of those things. Whatever. We're all imperfect. And I know he's got and if he's in Pennsylvania, that's great, because there's a lot of proper Catholics converging there. I see it's going to be, maybe one of the new city states is going to be in Pennsylvania, and Dances with Logos is there, so my representative is about. But yeah, by the way, Bishop Sanborn's sacraments and his priest's sacraments are all valid. He's a valid bishop, so I'm not, taking that away from him. It's just, let's be clear, Bishop Sanborn is a bishop, he's a priest of power. There are always been two sides to the church, There are the people for power and the people for piety. And the people for power are generally more concerned with worldly things, which is not always a bad thing. I mean, you could say, well, the Catholic Church scammed a lot of people out of money. Yes, it did happen. Yes, there were bad people that used that money for themselves and whatever, but they also allowed the building of the brilliant cathedrals that were all over the world that allowed the Christianization of the whole planet. So there was also a benefit to that. Not always conscious, but God uses even evil to create good things. ROTC, I don't know what that is. William Poole says that Teddy Spaghetti guy or whatever is an ROTC, but boy, I don't know what that means. David Perkins, I'll get the birch logs with my stone axe. You can get the flint and steel before a creeper gets you. Mr. Bad's happy hour. I beg to differ. Mr. Bad, mind your manners, because otherwise I will ban you. I don't care that I know you. David, I had in a podcast he was on recently that things are moving along well with it and is going to update soon. I don't know about the town approval specifically, but sounded like they were approved. Okay, good. It'll be interesting to see how the local diocese interacts with them. Oh, they pretend to ignore you, just like Bergoglio, until we become so powerful and so well known that Bergoglio's out there like now trying to stamp out Sedevacantism. Oh, they're just heretics, they're schismatics. No, you are. In fact, you're not even a schismatic, you're a complete Satanist, so it's different. Preparing right now. Yes, I agree, they were indoctrinated in it. Maybe they can be convinced how wrong it is, especially after Bergoglio's heresies. Well, Bergoglio's been great for the real church because he's shown his hand to the point where now you've got people like Vigano who are, just as non-Catholic as Bergoglio, pretending to salvage the situation. Of course, it's very confusing. It also doesn't help that you have people like Anne Barnhart who are genuine believers that Ratzinger is the real Pope when he's absolutely not. You can't support Vatican II or any of the people that support Vatican II and call yourself a Catholic. It's just absolutely impossible. And again, it's in the book, the details are in there. So you don't have to take my word for it. Don't take my word for anything. Just study, do your research, and you'll see I'm correct. Exactly. The whole, Escat de Silva says the Byzantine Empire was utterly layered with nepotism and corruption. So getting busy with spreading Christianity was not on the agenda. Absolutely right. I mean, to this day, we use the word Byzantine as being super complicated with nepotism and lies and deception. So Islamo-Christian is a joke aimed at boomers. Whatever. Novus Ordo Diocese rarely say anything about city priests from what I've seen. Don't want to risk exposing people to the truth. Exactly that. They're afraid. They are afraid. Okay. I saw them making their usual "we disavow" statement. The community interaction is more what I'm interested in. Seminarians possibly converting Norcos. Exactly right. More dislikes. I think we have more Protestants Orco watching. Well, only 3 of them. Keith A. says we're guilty for falling for it. Yes. Unfortunately, you see, Catholicism, or truth, or reality, is an adult religion. You are responsible for everything that you do or don't do. So if you fall for it, and if you're complacent, and you just say, yeah, I got saved, I got baptized, once saved, always saved, I can now go ahead and rape children because, hey, I'm saved. Yeah, you're guilty. You're probably not even going to purgatory, but rather the other, lower route. So I suggest you take these things seriously. They're important. Along with the Robin Griffiths Jones book, I think I may as well buy my first foray into G.K. Chesterton. I love Chesterton, the quotes of whom I love. What Chesterton work would you recommend as a first read? I don't know. I mean, he's written Heretics, he's written Orthodoxy. They're all good. I don't know. Pick one and just start. It's I wouldn't know which one to. Heretics is pretty good because it's, yeah, I would, maybe Heretics, I don't know. It's a personal choice, honestly. They're all good. Reminds me of the story of the nuns who walked to the guillotine singing Salve Regina. Apparently they walked to it as if walking down the aisle on their wedding day. Yes, that is the Catholic martyrs. They are absolutely, and that's why I say I'm not a martyr. I'm nowhere near. Martyrs on the scale of the hierarchy, because there is a hierarchy in heaven and here on earth. As Catholics, we absolutely believe that. You've got a hierarchy of saints, and martyrs are up there. I'm not a martyr class. The warrior class is way down here, and I'm fully aware of that. I would not have that presence of mind and of spirit, and it's not my faith that's lacking. It's my sense of justice. I would be so outraged at it. I would not be able to so magnanimously walk towards the guillotine. I'd be trying to take chunks out of the face of the executioner with my teeth, if I could. That I'm going down fighting, man. Fuck that, and I know that has less of an impact on the people around that are watching than the ones who do go to their death with magnanimity. So that is why I know they're absolutely higher on the ladder. Very clean banning, not even giving him the dopamine of getting insulted. Well, yeah, it's pointless. They know where they belong. I shall weep at the banning of the very, very special boy. Tried to tag kernel and thread on SG, started at Protestant era and quickly devolved into Cathar Gnostic heresy. Yes. Gammas get the pit. Kurgan is merciful, allowing their corpses to rot together in Minecraft. Indeed. Minecraft is indeed a wonderful place where all sorts of fun and exciting things happen. Yes, although I am leaning towards Roblox. I've never played Minecraft, and I couldn't get out of the literal. Like my 8-year-old daughter or 7-year-old daughter can create all sorts of things in Roblox. I literally couldn't get my guy. I managed to get him to put on a beanie hat, and I couldn't get out of the room he was in. So, I'm not technologically way up there, but don't need to be. Just know to sharpen the two-handed sword. I don't even read all that much. I'm just a half-retarded plumber, but the leather-bound books are beautiful and they last forever. I also assume that at the very least maintain their value over time. You're not retarded. That Cordell Mitchell, that is one of the lies you've been told. There's 11 lies that people tell themselves or get told. The ignorant. Here you go, 6.11. They say things like, and this is straight from my book, I am not smart enough. Yes, you are, especially if someone shows you. There is too much to work through. Reading this book is about it. I don't have the time to figure it out. If you can read this book, you can. It's not for me to question why. Remember, false humility is not a virtue, and it isn't. Okay. Heard my name, feeding my crusaders. Very good girl. Well done. You keep feeding those crusaders. Do you ever go on Catholic shows or streams as a guest? No, I think most so-called Catholics are absolutely terrified of speaking with me. E. Michael Jones ran away from a question that was posed to him, and he's like a prostitute going to anybody's show to talk about Catholicism, but he's not. He's just a grifter, and he's talking about his own books and trying to sell his crap. And he's an absolute liar, funded by Opus Dei, which has been exposed by a couple of articles written by a lady whose name I forget. There is a Catholic radio channel called the Veritas Radio Network, and the Mike Church show is on there. I bet they would like to have you as a guest. I've heard, I believe he interviewed E. Michael Jones and nailed him to the wall. Yeah, I would be interested in actually talking to the guy. I don't know much about him. I haven't had a chance to listen to him, but sure. William Poole, if you can set it up, ping me an email. I'll happily, gladly go on their show if I can, depending on times and so on. But yeah. Off topic, what is your favorite board game, including the classics like chess? Board game, I don't know if you mean like role-playing games or just board game. As board games, Japanese chess, Go, is my favorite one. Very few people to play with, though. I think Bishops Dolans and Sanborn do a good job balancing each other within their circles from my observation. That may well be. Someone deleted my first comment about who is fooling us in America. Well, you guys are just been fooled from the beginning. You're a Freemasonic country. It was started by Freemasons under Freemasonic principles. So ROTC equals Revenge of the Cis. Oh, right. YouTube streams with two guys who have their trolls harass Owen and Vox, and therefore they will target you from time to time too. Okay, I don't know who those people are. I couldn't care less. I know that there are Reddit channels about Owen and Vox, I think. I did go and check them out once. They had a pretty funny. They made like this action figure, like about Vox and Owen, and they made one about me, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah, I laughed at it. I mean, there was a lot of shit about like Vox and Owen being gays or whatever. I don't know. I really haven't trolled through that mess, but I did see the Kurgan action figure. Now it was quite funny. I mean, I know they mean it with bad intent, but it actually made me laugh. So, oh, I thought RTC was a joke about the Reserve Officers Training Corps. Yeah, I think I don't know, the fake Catholic training for Christianity is called ROTC. I think, I'm not sure. Ben Evans says, oh no, sorry, Novetelion says, there's a collection of Chesterton's essays that's quite good, In Defense of Sainty, the best essays of Jesus. Oh, then I would go for that one. There you go. Ben Evans, I think Novetelion has, because Chesterton's essays are like fucking a series of nukes. They're really good, funny. Vox not supporting Kurgan just shows he knows where the pay pigs are. J. Peter, I don't know what he's talking about. Escat de Silva, the value over time is if you treasure their content. Value is objective. J. Peter again says, bears are based Christians who support and donate. You folks, armchair heretics with no dollars. All right, I don't know what your beef is, J. Peter. I don't know who you are, and I don't know what your complaint is. If you've got a genuine dialectic one, go ahead and make it, and I'll address it. But I don't know what you're on about at the moment. Pick one and just start is probably the best indication of an awesome writer. Cheers, Gurgen. Yeah. And another gamma, probably. All caps lock name is gay. Is the Minecraft thing because of the Vatican server? Possibly. I don't know. I don't really know what the whole Minecraft thing is. I'm guessing that it's an alternative thing where you can discuss stuff. Oh, we got a whole 7 downvotes. I guess a few bears or whatever popped in. Gay Peter is a gamma. All right. Okay, well, I've gone for an hour and a half and a bit. So I hope I've tried to explain a bit better what I meant about, how Protestants need to be helped out of their heresy. Yeah. Fuzzy Bear says, in Minecraft is the new someone who isn't me or asking for a friend or, yeah, I guess. I'm guessing. I don't really know. But I know that in Minecraft, there's a plan to take over St. Michael and then from there start the new crusade. So I just need to get myself to Minecraft at some point, I guess. Okay. Come on, we got a bit of time. So Gay Peter, whatever your name is. I don't know what you're going on about. I'm guessing you're another one of those, like the Teddy Spaghetti guy, whatever his name was. I don't know, disgruntled bear, ankle biting gamma, as I think they call themselves. Go ahead. Giving you an opportunity to talk. You're not banned. In Minecraft is to avoid fed posting. Okay, there you go. Somebody trying to explain the technologies that I am just not smart enough to understand. Vatican server that gets vandalized. Grumpus Aurelia says, appreciate it, going to reread your blog responses. Okay, great, thanks. Oh my, that's hilarious. Crusading, there might be too meta. Yeah. The Minecraft thing was a joke from 4chan. I want to kill Hillary Clinton, but only in Minecraft, of course. Okay, thanks for explaining that, because I had no idea. I mean, I know what 4chan is, but I've never been on there. I don't know what they really sort of a bunch of hacker kind of guys that weaponized autists and all sorts of freaks, I'm guessing. I did hear a snippet, a conversation on PKA with a guy called Dick Masterson and somebody else who was the moderator on Wikipedia Dramatica, I think, and he was telling us about how the people that used to moderate the Wikipedia Dramatica were all complete freaks and got arrested, got to jail. They were all like cokeheads. I don't know. It was quite funny and weird. Ben Evans says, Go is so difficult. All jokes. No. I don't think Go is difficult. It just takes a bit of, you just need to sort of, the reason I like it, it's because there's an element of intuition on it that goes beyond pure logically reasoning out the moves. You have to almost play by instinct to get anywhere with it to a certain extent. And that is something that you can only develop over time. So it's not a game that you will pick up quickly, but over time it becomes, it's a true meeting of minds and empathy and philosophy. It's a lot of everything mixed in. It's a very good. Master trolls against leftists. The plan is to visit St. Michael disguised as tourist boomers. Once we're inside, we make our move. That's right. Yeah. Go is great. Haven't played in years. Yeah, it's rare to find people that know what Go is, and I literally like playing with the actual stones and the physical board. There's a tactile element to it that I really enjoy, and it's very clean and simple. So, yeah, I really do enjoy Go. Okay, there's 44 of you here, so I'm gonna give you guys another couple of minutes to whatever, ask a question, make a comment. And let's give our local J. Peter, who I think is some weird kind of gamma. J. Peter, if you're still there, you're still listening, you're not banned. You seem to have some kind of beef, or I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he's just making a random comment. Okay. Thank you all. Unless there's any question next, let's see, 42. Let's give it until 45. If you guys have anything to say, speak now, or I'll see you next time. Since we've caught up with all the comments. They believe that, yeah, Jordan Hilburn says they believe that professing Jesus Lord is making them go to heaven, but demons know this too. Exactly. The standards of a Protestant are the same standards of demons. Know that Jesus Christ is Lord. Really? Demons know that. So that's your standard for being a Christian. It's pretty low. Okay, guys. It's, like I said, it's been an hour and 3/4, so Arki and I need to have it out. He refused to admit that the French are the greatest warriors. The Franks and the Normans may have been in the past, but you need to know that those people were essentially kind of conquered by the Vikings, who then became the French and the Normans. And the French of today are just, I'm sorry, but they're synonymous with gay. And although I'm no fan of the Americanism, cheese-eating surrender monkeys is pretty appropriate. But there you go. And Archibera is back. Says David Perkins, are you the guy that thinks the French can fight? I mean, the French have got their ass kicked literally everywhere they went. From Indochine, as you French would say, to everywhere else. When I look in the history of each Protestant sect, I find it was started by some wacko. Of course, because it's a grift. You know, Taylor Marshall is a bit smarter than the average Protestant because he realized this grift ain't going to work. I better switch to the bigger grift, Novus Ordo, and then I'm going to kind of play the game. Just pretend that I could be traditional, but maybe I'm not. But I'm not really going to say. And then I'll just use all the same showmanship that I use for Protestant to let us pray. You're not a leader. You're not a pastor. You're just a guy talking on YouTube, just like me. So, you know. I've tried to get into it a few times, but never go beyond 18-ish Q. Massive mental workout. Yeah. Thank you, Dances with Logos. You always about, despite the fact that you're raising two small crusaders and obviously a busy and good wife. So thanks for attending. 41 people, 41 thumbs up. Well, I'll say that's prophetic right there. And we've hit the 45-minute mark now, 1 hour 45. So thank you all very much for coming along. I hope it was of some use. Those of you who are in Pennsylvania, keep congregating. I think the first possibly true Catholic city-state might be in Pennsylvania. So don't be shy to get together. Meet up. Start to form, plan out where your city-state's going to be. And remember, it's going to have walls. It's got to have walls. Didn't a French teacher get his head cut off by a Muslim today for showing a picture of Muhammad to his Muslim students? He tried to teach them about free expression. I don't know. I don't watch the news, so that's quite possible. But to give you an idea of how hardcore the people I got baptized with are, there's an article on their website. So the lithium, that's how you spell it. That discusses the fact that French priest or fake Novus Ordo priest that was killed in a Catholic church and was beheaded. And I think the heading of the article is like, was this a tragedy or was this justice for falsely pretending to do the mass? So they're pretty hardcore without being vicious. They are full of charity, those priests, but they don't mince their words. So big, beautiful walls indeed. Thank you all again, and thanks LS16 Heinz. That must be a German with a name like that. But again, thank you, and have a good night and a good weekend.